Hey guys, Miss Hewitt back here again. I'm reading from page 1, the bottom of page 111, all the way to the end of chapter 10 of The River Between Us by Richard Peck. A great cartwheel, 6 feet across, leaning against a flagpole, tied hand and foot to that wheel, spread eagle, was a soldier boy, no older than Noah. He was burned by the sun and his tongue lollied out of his mouth. Around his neck a sign hung on twine. Thief. He wasn't Noah, but he was somebody's son. I saw then I was going to have to be much stronger than I was. Military justice is rough justice, Dr. Hutchinson said, or no justice at all. But he went on to say he'd end up in the uniform, doctoring for the army. He had thought he'd do more good as a contract surgeon, a civilian doctor, but he was finding out different. The camp roads were worse than Cairo's. We were up to our hubs now. There were meaner tents back there for the regular soldiers, pitched right in the mud against the steeping levee. The reek of cook fires hung low over worse smells. We were pretty nearly married now. Dr. Hutchinson's helped Delphine and me down on the only dry patch. He said he'd go see if Noah was up for us coming out. But where is he? Delphine demanded to know, gazing about for anything resembling a hospital. There are 6 regimental hospitals, Dr. Hutchinson said. Those 3 tents are one of them. We go there. Delphine hiked her shortened skirts. Oh, no, Miss Duval, the doctor put out a hand to bar her way. Never a good idea. They're under quarantine. Most of them are measles cases. Half the regiment has had... Me? I'm a Creole from New Orleans, Delphine struck herself a bow. If yellow fever ain't kill me, what can? And what does this girl care for measles? She indicated me. She want her brother. But no women, ladies, are allowed in the hospital tents. It's entirely for your own good. There are men in there in their underwear, and there are no blankets, and Dr. Hutchinson was getting right to the end of his rope. Delphine had drawn up her almost 5 feet without the heeled slippers. She glanced back at me, and her veiled eyes sparked with dark fire. This girl's brother is in that tent, is it so? Dr. Hutchinson admitted it was. You are not an officer to command me. And me, I am not a soldier. She pointed herself out with a fingered glove. And if I was, I wouldn't be soldiering on this side. Get the quilt, she said to me. The doctor was this close to wringing his hands. Truly, Miss Pruitt, he said as we bore down to the tent flap, I can't permit. But it would have taken 5 or 6 of his men of his size to keep us out. I wanted my brother. Delphine, with the hamper on her arm, ducked inside and stopped dead. I walked up to her heels with the quilt bundled in both hands. The smell hit me and nearly sent me sideways. Delphine swayed like a spalling. The doctor edged in beside, with some last-ditch notion of sparing us the worst. I supposed it was a tent of 4 or 5. There were 10 in there, 5 on a side. In the middle, a Sibley stove smoked and used up what air there was. 2 or 3 boys were on cots. The rest were stretched right out on the ground in beds of sinking straw. They lay there, where they'd been sick. They sprawled in their messes because they were too weak to get to the privacies, if there were privacies. In the afternoon light slanting through canvases, they looked like old men. One sat at the end of his cot with a bucket and a diaper at his feet. He was badly wasted, and his cheeks were sunk to where he looked like a death head. Tilly, he said. Noah. It was Noah. We couldn't faint nor flee now. We threw back our veils and made our way to him, sinking the slime with every step. None of the prone figures marked our passage, and though we were wide-eyed. Delphine? I wouldn't have known him in the street, but there were Noah's eyes, blue and keen. I saw he'd already decided to live, though he needed encouragement. He pointed at the bundle I'd made of my quilt. His fingers were long and gaunt now. You patched that quilt, Tilly. And so I had, in my coarse stitches, using thread of whatever color I could find. The tears flooded his eyes and swam down all the hollows of his face, a boy's tears for home, and what had been. He tried to hide them from Delphine, but it didn't matter. Her temper flared up like a sudden sunrise, and she sputtered into French. Mon Dieu, c'est incroyable. It is, how do you call this place? A sty. Who nurses these men? I'm the nurse, Noah said. Them that can get up off their pallets is the nurses. It's the army's way. We can't get any other help in here for the fear they'll catch the measles. I ought to have brung these boys water, but I ain't worked up the steam. He touched the empty pail with the toe of his boot. He wore his boots from home. Dr. Hutchinson hovered. Delphine was just about to hold him personally responsible for the entire war on all fronts. I grabbed up the pail and handed it over. I didn't know if a doctor would lower himself to tote water, but this one was glad enough to make himself scarce. Delphine and me both knew he had a good heart, and he was stretched thin. But he was a man, and man can't look after themselves, let alone one another. "Could you eat something?" I asked Noah. I longed to take a cake of pine tar soap to his neck and ears, but first things first. "I could eat real good," he said, "if I could get it and it was cooked through." We showed him the hamper. "Fried chicken?" he said in a thick and wondering voice. "They were strutting around Cass's chicken yard this time yesterday, eating bugs," I told him, and watched him light into a leg. He was starved. The dysentery had wrung him out, but he was past that now, and weak mostly from hunger. He had the biscuits, too, and I fished a jar of preserves out from the quilt. Delphine and me, we stood over him while he wept at the chicken and then gnawed it to the white bone. Then he sobbed at the sight of the biscuit and put it away, both halves heaped with preserves. Oh, it done me good to see him feed. But wedged beside him on the filthy cot, I spied a book he'd been studying. It was Hardy's Tactics, a text about soldiering and great battles and how they were waged. My heart sank. Noah was too weak to heave a bucket of water, and he was still studying the arts of war and yearning to let fly with grape and canister. I marveled at the way men's minds were made and how they think, if you can call it at all that. I saw plain that we'd get him on his feet only so he could go off and try his level best to get himself killed. I could have wept, but I thought I'd better save my tears for when I needed them most. And that was from page 111 to 116 of chapter 10. So our next chapter will be chapter 11.